Thank you for joining today's webinar, How to Stay Ahead on the Online Fraudsters. And we have quite the webinar for you. But before we get into this topic, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go through. So, of course, go back.
Sorry about that.
No worries. We have disclosures, right? And so you're going to learn a lot of information in this webinar about how to protect yourself and keep your information safe online. But that doesn't go without saying that everyone's situation setup is going to be different. So please, 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 talk to someone and before you make any changes, determine whether or not those changes are good for your system setup at home. All right, so now we're going to go to the housekeeping items. We like to keep it friendly here. We have a lot of interaction. We're going to do most of that interaction through the Zoom chat function. But as you ask your questions, because there are quite a few people here, you want to make sure that you ask those questions in the Q&A feature, which is right next to the chat feature. So I will be moderating those questions, and then we have the questions that you asked us at the beginning when you registered. John has those. And without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to John Stream. He is our Chief Information Security Officer. He is with SwitchThink. And SwitchThink is a subsidiary of Desert Financial. And I'm going to kick it off to him so he can share a little bit more about his background and today's topic.
Hey, thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for joining. I also thank you for giving me the questions in advance. I love to know that I'm meeting expectations and that I can have an opportunity to answer the questions throughout the presentation. But I know that your time is valuable. And what I want to cover today, I want to make sure that A, you have your questions answered, and B, that you know that everything that I talk about today can be used both in your personal life and in your work life. Everything is a best practice here. I'm not going to give away any trade secrets or recommend any great products, but you will leave here with a good understanding of what kind of threats are out there and what you can do to stop them. What gives me the right to tell you that? I've been working for Desert Financial as an engineer and a leader and now in information security for over 20 years. Long-time member here. My money is here. I've got a couple of car loans here. And I'm interested in protecting not only my money and my information, but your information as well. I love what I do. I'm an IT guy at heart. And fighting the good fight against attackers requires a very skilled and adept organization, and that's what SwitchThink is. And we're here to serve. So make no mistake, we're not just the police that want to restrict everything and say no to everything. We're here to enable the business, but to enable things safely. And yeah, without further ado, and I love talking shop. So if you do have any questions that I don't get a chance to answer, my email address is you can Google me and find my email address. It's out there. I'm not going to act like my information is private. What we'll cover today is pretty much understand that none of our information is private any longer. So I'm advancing. There we go. So what we'll cover today, our agenda, we'll talk about text message trends, advertising fraud. I know that was a question that came up. The bad guys have our phone numbers, not just our home numbers, if anybody uses them anymore, but they also have our cell phones, or as my children like to say, they're just phones, Dad. They're no longer cell phones. What's a cell? And then lastly, we'll talk about password protection. And throughout this presentation, I'll talk through some of the best practices that you can implement in your personal life to protect your online identities. Let's see if there's a better one. There we go. Oh, have you received a text message? Let me ask you a question. Have you received a text message claiming to be from Desert Financial? I'm going to assume yes. And we're going to play a game of spot the legitimate message. Which one of these messages is legitimate? And I'm just going to wait for one person to scream out the answer, and then I'm going to go. None of them. That's right, Caitlin. None of them are legitimate. These are all fake. How do we know? We look for the red flags. We look for the areas where they don't match with what we're expecting to see. There are no rules. The email addresses, the phone numbers, all of these are going to come from a random contact. They can even come from us. These things are easy to be spoofed and easy to be manipulated. So when you get one of these messages, thankfully, they're so frequent that you just ignore your cell phone most times anyways, that you ignore the phone calls, you ignore the text messages. But they do come in from all over the place, and they may be even trying to say that they have our name in it, or an initial of our name, or an acronym of some kind. They will also use scare tactics. They'll tell you that your address has been updated, that a pending charge is on your account, that there's an unrecognized action. They want you to be a little bit apprehensive and a little bit anxious about this text message, because they want you to act, and they want you to click a link. They want to help you, take you to a place that's insecure. And they'll do that by putting in a moniker. They'll put in a lookalike website into the link that they want to take you to. They know that you're a member here. How do they know? Not because we've been breached. They know that because there are so many aggregations of information out there, and Desert Financial is the largest credit union in the state of Arizona with a very large market share. There's a high probability that they can send one of these messages to you and get lucky. The same way that I get text messages from a Chase account that I don't have, or a Wells Fargo account that I don't have. These are called spray and pray attacks, and they're going to try to attempt to get everybody as often as they can. Lastly, they've gotten pretty cute. They're adding logos to make it even look more official. So it's not just a text message that they're sending. They're sending the logo to get you to let down your guard, to pull you into some place that's unsafe. My best course of action for these guys is to just block them, block the sender, and never hear from them again. There's ways that you can report them, and we'll talk about what you can do to report fraud at the end of the presentation. Have you heard or seen search engine fraud? I know we had a question earlier, how can you trust the websites that you're going to? Well, I'm going to give you an area where it is not okay to trust them. So I'm using a Bing browser in this area, and I've typed in Desert Financial Credit Union into my search bar. And if you look, the first result is a fraudulent website. This particular type of attack is called ad poisoning. The bad guys are compromising Google's ad delivery system to push the bad site to the top. Whoops. Sorry about that. I don't think that was me. There we go. To push it to the top. So if you look at this one, the only way that you're going to spot it is with the Z. Even they've gotten very sophisticated, and sometimes they'll put in foreign or other alphabet letters that look like an S but are really something else. What you can do to identify these is to just go to your bookmarks, save desertfinancial.com as your homepage, or as your, put it in a banking folder in your bookmarks. Leverage those sites that you trust, that you've built, not something that's being served to you. That's my number one recommendation there is get used to typing it really fast, because that's going to be your best course of action in any of these cases where you receive an email with a link, or you receive a text message with a link, or you have an ad that's presented to you that's fraudulent. Become adept at going directly to the source. Let's see, what can you do to block these? There are certain programs that you can install into your browser. I don't recommend all of them, but there is one called uBlock Origin. uBlock is an open source utility that blocks a lot of these ads, that will prevent these sort of fraudulent ads from being served to your browser. There's whole home solutions. If you're like me, you can look up a YouTube video and do just about anything. There's this application called a Pi-hole, P-I-H-O-L-E. If you can follow a YouTube video and can configure maybe a Raspberry Pi, ad blockers exist for a reason, and ad blocking through your whole home of your network is also an option. That's for your more skilled practitioners. But a lot of times your modern browser, if you keep updating your browsers, if you make sure that you're constantly patching your system, browsers are really good at protecting your privacy, and so they're getting much better at identifying these and preventing these from being loaded. The best option, like I said before, is type your name directly into the window. Don't trust the links that are being served to you, because they're there to bring you to a place that's untrusted. What is the safest way to contact Desert Financial? This one should be very easy. Call us directly. Go to our website directly. 433-7000 has been our number as long as I've been with the credit union. Desertfinancial.com, since our name changed a while back, is always tried and true. It's very safe. It's well protected. And it's the best way to get in touch with us should anything come up with your account. If you click on a link and accidentally provide your credentials to an attacker, please call us. If you start getting pop-ups on your cell phone, on your mobile message, you get SMS text messages about your code indicating somebody may be trying to get into your account, definitely call us so that we can put a watch on it. Calling us directly and going to the website directly are always your best courses of action, because there are sketchy links out there that you don't want to interact with. Lisa's question: how do you remember all these passwords? I'll tell you, because it is getting impossible. Password best practices are really password musts. You must do these things in order to stay secure anymore. The number one thing that I say is don't reuse your passwords. So in the way that I keep this, the way that I try to explain this is keep your money passwords different from your email passwords. If your email address controls your money, make sure that those two passwords are never the same. And that means if you have multiple money accounts or you have multiple email accounts, all of those passwords must be unique. Don't use the same naming scheme for both of them and just change up a letter or change up the site name, because those are easy to predict and easy to hack. Keep your passwords long and random. I like passphrases. String together 3 words with some numbers and some symbols intermixed, and that's a really great password. It's difficult to guess. It's difficult to guess, and it's almost uncrackable. Enable multi-factor authentication. So this one is really critical. In the order of what I prefer, what I like multi-factor authentication, the least secure of multi-factor authentication is an email code. If you have your online banking platform configured to send that 6-digit code to your email, that's good, but it could be better. Having that code sent to your cell phone as an SMS text message is better. It's a lot easier to break into your email than it is to, hijack your cell phone. And lastly, there's hardware tokens and there's multi-factor authentication tokens out there. There's applications that will provide an extra layer of security that you can't hijack using a cell phone. That's kind of the good, better, best. But number one, do not share these MFA codes with a person. A lot of times, as we're reading through this, our eyes are scanning. Just give me the number so that I can plug my number in and move on. But what we tell you here is really important. Don't share these codes with a person. Desert Financial, a person, somebody that works for our organization, is never going to ask you for this code. This code is only meant for you to plug into a website when you enter that. That's critical. We see a lot of fraud these days where, somebody will pick up the phone and call you, and they'll tell you that they're from here, and they're going to start asking you for a bunch of information, and they're really good at getting feedback or getting information from you. And as they're trying to reset your password to your online banking platform, it's going to send you a code, and they're going to say, to verify your identity, please tell me the code that I just sent you. This is the code that they're going to send you. We will never do that. That is not something that we do. That is not one of our user identification or member identification practices. So do not share that code with a person. If somebody is on the phone, call them back at 433-7000. Don't keep engaging with them. They're going to try to keep you on the phone. They're going to try to scare you and say, oh, if you don't do this now, fraud is going to get executed on your account and we're not going to be able to roll it back. They're going to try to keep you on the phone. Hang up with them and call us directly, and we're going to put a stop to it. What can you do? What can you suggest when Desert Financial's number is spoofed? Good question, Kelly. There's not much, unfortunately. The FCC, the Federal Communications Division, hasn't enforced enough laws and regulations on the mobile device providers or the cell phone providers to restrict that. Calling is really easy to spoof. Our number's been published online for years and years and years, so it's easy to spoof that number. And if you have our contact saved in your phone, it'll trigger it and identify the number, and it'll say, hey, Desert Financial's calling. It's really hard. So when you receive a call or you receive a text message, the number one thing I recommend is be skeptical, especially if it's a warning message. Oh my gosh, there's fraud in your account. It's always best idea to pick up the phone and call them back. Don't use the link that they send you, or don't use their call to verify that information, because you can't always trust it. Okay, here's some advanced things. I want you to forget all your passwords. So let your password manager be the thing that manages your password. That way you only need to know one password. All of your other passwords now can be forgotten. Passwords are a thing that you need to learn how to use. We've all learned to use Netflix, right? We all used to learn a new remote for watching our TVs. Password managers are that easy to use, but we have to train ourselves to use them and use them right. That doesn't mean you have one password manager that has 7 websites that all have the same password, because that's my favorite password. Use a password manager and make sure that those password, when it detects a website, it's going to prompt you to say, would you like to save this password? It's going to auto generate you a random string of digits or a random passphrase. Use that and save it to the application, because anytime on your phone or on your web browser or anywhere you go, when you signed in with that password manager, it's going to automatically populate that password. So you never have to see it. You never have to type it. It will make your life easier, and it will protect your money. So if you're thinking about financial wellness, your password manager is a warning signal. If you go to a website, say you go to desertfinancial.com, and your password isn't automatically funneled into there, you should have some warning bells going off, because that means that website is not tied to that account that you've got saved. If it normally just goes straight through, then you're good to go. If it hiccups and it says, hey, I don't know what this password is, double check that URL, double check that address bar and make sure. Let's see. So I hear LastPass is my family go-to. That's a great one. I'll say that you can Google them, but I'll help you there. 1Password is a good one. I've heard Dashlane is really good. Bitwarden is good. If you don't want to use a cloud provider, those are all subscription-based. Some of them have free ones. There's some things that you can install on your local machine that have your local password safe. And yes, Shannon, a password manager is an app. It is something that you will subscribe to online. And I just gave a couple of those names: LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane, Bitwarden. I think those are the big ones. I'll stop at 4. But going to any one of those websites will allow you to register with an account, and then you will load it to your mobile phone, load it into all of your browsers, load it onto all your computers. Your passwords will follow you wherever you go. So if you have to, my favorite use case is I'm at the checkout line at Southwest. I'm trying to sign in, and I know I've got TSA pre-check, but my boarding pass doesn't have it on there. The only way to do that is to call Southwest or log in on the app. I don't know what my Southwest password is. So boom, I can go to southwest.com, password manager automatically loads it in there, and I'm done. And I've got my TSA pre-check saved in my password manager, so I know where that is too. It's just a good, secure way to follow you around wherever you go on every device that you go to. So good question. Closing notes. Wow, that was quick. What do I want to say? Let's see. Links, don't trust them. Fraudulent ads, try to block them. Ignore them at the very least. Google makes a lot of money, and I'm not gonna make any friends at Google by saying this, but they make a lot of money in serving you ads based on the things that you type into the address bar. If you scroll down a couple of lines, avoid the ads at the top and go directly to the source. That way you're not becoming part of the machine, I guess I'll say. And you're guaranteeing that you're not going to be served with a fraudulent ad should you type something. Our contacts, use them. Pick up the phone and call us. We have great customer support folks who are ready to serve and who are ready to protect your information. And if you're up for it, passwords, forget them. Learn to forget your passwords. That way you will have one master password to rule them all. And I believe that's where 1Password got its name from, is you only need 1Password anymore, and that's it. Let's see. So can scammers spoof password managers? How can we see which password managers are legitimate? Scammers, it's really tough to spoof password managers. The password manager companies that I mentioned have really great security teams and have really tried and true encryption baked into their product. So it makes it really hard when it makes it hard to attack a system if their encryption is really good. So if you never tell anybody what your master password is, and it's good and long and random, and you've never used it anywhere else, that's almost impossible to hack. So I would trust them. I trust them with my own personal life. I use a password manager for my own stuff, and it follows me around everywhere I go. How can we see which password managers are legitimate? Like I said, use the top ones. There's safety in numbers, and there's companies that are that have thousands of employees to manage these things. Desert Financial offers anywhere from 8 to 30 characters in a password. Is it going to be recommended from now on to do at least 15 characters? No. 8 characters is a minimum. That's not to say that you can't do better. And is 15? 15 is the number that I use because it usually you can make up 3 5-letter words pretty easily. Ocean, shell, and coche. I'll say car in Spanish. I'll mix it up a little bit more. Those are 3 random words, and nobody's guessing them. And that's 15 characters. And now if I had a number or an exclamation point somewhere in the middle, we've got the complexity that you need. 8. So if you look at some statistics, and I'll wrap this up here in a second. If you look at some statistics, even an 8-character password, if it is complex, meaning it has uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, is going to take a supercomputer 10,000 years to crack. What's a lot easier is if you use that password on another website and it's kind of like your favorite password, and that website gets breached, now they know your password, and they're going to try to use that password consistently across a whole bunch of websites. So my recommendation is use a password manager, remember that one complex password, and don't use it anywhere else. Good question. Let's see. Some of the questions I got online earlier, how can I tell if a cybersecurity company is good? That's a lot of times really tough. My best information would be to just talk to them. Ask for what their credentials are, ask maybe who they worked for before, who some of their clients are, and ask what they're going to do for you. What are some recommendations that they would provide to you? What I've covered today is best practices. What are the things that you can do that are always going to be helpful? Focusing on the best practices eliminates 90% of the threats out there. That if you can do those things, you're not going to become a victim. How can I trust websites that might be spoofed? The answer to that, go directly to the website. Avoid links that are being served to you. Anything that's a convenience for you is an opportunity for you to go from somewhere secure to somewhere insecure, and we don't want that. How do I protect the banks from the hackers? Great question. I'm not going to get into details on that, but I'm just going to say that you have to be excellent at the basics. There is so much automation and so much automated hacking and bots and AI that if you fall down doing the basics, it doesn't take very long for an attacker to get into your environment. So be excellent at the basics, but also be great other places. And we at Desert Financial are great in a lot of different places. How secure is the average person? I think the average person is very secure, provided they follow some basic tenets. So some of the things that we just described, if you do the basics, you're going to be fine. What I will say, though, is there's been a lot of data breaches over the last 15 or 20 years, and a lot of our personal information is already out there. How do we act if we assume that our data has already been breached? Experian or Equifax had a massive data breach. United Health had a massive data breach. You see in the news, there's data breaches all the time where our personal information is being leaked. Once it's out there, you can't bring it back in. So what would we do differently if we assume that our information is already breached? If my social security number, I'm going to assume is already out there, what would I do differently? I'm going to put credit monitoring on all of my accounts. It's a free service through each of the bureaus. You could even lock your credit file. So if you want to prevent identity theft and you want to prevent fraud from occurring to you as a person, do those things. If you're in the market to buy a car, by all means, unlock your credit because you're going to have a tough time buying a car. But if you're not in the market for anything, just shut it down and lock it down. Because the reality is that your email address, your passwords, your socials, your home address, it's likely already been leaked. I'm gonna put in the chat below a plug to another website. It's called Have I Been Pwned, PWNED, .com. Have I Been Pwned? You can Google it or type it directly into the browser. It gives you an opportunity to type in your email address, and it'll tell you all of the different websites that your email address has been used in a breach. So if your email address has been leaked, there's a good chance, but let's say there is a chance that your information has been leaked because of those websites. So go to Have I Been, PWNED, pwned.com, and double check your information. It's a trustworthy site. The guy that puts it on is a Microsoft MVP, very, very legitimate, very, very private and secure. But check it out. It might be alarming. I know that my Yahoo account is my junk mail account. I think I've got like 17 breaches off of that one. So I know better than to use that for anything legitimate or anything important. Let's see. We talked about password manager. Thank you for that. ID theft protection, close account, and monitor your credit. Close your credit inquiries down. Let's see. Password, does that mean don't use similar passwords or use Google Password as a creator? So, Letitia, I'm going to answer that one. That's a great point. Yes, that means forget them. Yes, that means use a password manager. Yes, don't use similar passwords. If you use similar passwords across sites, you can get yourself into trouble because attackers, if they have one password in one area, they're going to try it on every single other website that's out there. They're going to try it on your Venmo, your PayPal, your Netflix, well, I don't know, where else you go shopping, your Amazon account. They're going to try those passwords everywhere. Google Password Creator as a tool to create elaborate, secure passwords. Here's my thought on that. It's okay. It's a little bit risky, and here's why it's risky. A lot of times, we will store our passwords in our browsers, and Google makes it really easy to sign into the browser. And do you want to synchronize all of your stuff? Yes, because it's so convenient. That way I have my passwords at home and I have my passwords on my phone. The risk is that if that account becomes compromised, if you click on a link on your home computer, there's a chance that that attacker can take over those passwords in all of your applications. And they may include work passwords too. So I don't like those as much as I like a whole third-party password management solution. That way it's not tied to your browser, it's tied to you and something that you know as a person. Let's see. In this day and age where so many sites require logins and passwords and safe payment information, what resources are available to close accounts logins that you may have forgotten? Good luck. I don't have an answer for that one. As far as saving the payments, request that your credit card company recycle you a new credit card and a new credit card number. That would be my guess there. The unfortunate reality is that credit card numbers are easy to generate, easy to shut down. Social security numbers, home addresses, mobile phone numbers. I mean, I only got one. I've had one cell phone number for 20 years and it stinks. It's already out in the wild. I get calls all day and there's not much I can do about it. But if you're worried about payment information, request a new number. They'll issue a new card. And I got one more slide. It's about fraud reporting. There we go. If you do suspect fraud, call us directly. If you suspect that something malicious is going on or something strange is going on your account or on your phone, or you're getting a call from somebody and you don't like their tone, call us directly, please. The next thing, if you have been a victim of fraud, look at this website. Go to the ic3.gov. This is the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center. FBI has a very, very good track record at getting funds returned to the victim. The more they know about it, the more they are successful at returning funds from fraudulent attackers. I think the last number that I saw in the FBI crime report of 2023 is like 40 to 60% of fraud that FBI was aware of, they've been able to get those funds returned, which is hugely successful. Even if it's as small as $100 or as much as $100,000, they'll work on it and try to get that money back. And there's my information. Do you also recommend contacting the FTC? Certainly cannot hurt, but the laws and regulations aren't structured right now to really do much about it. So, hey, and thank you, Caitlin. You're exactly right. 24/7. This is a nonstop job for those of us in the industry. We don't get to sleep very often. But I want to thank you all. If you do have any more questions, please do. Lisa, I'll take it and turn it over to you.
Awesome.